Mr. Krome has been quite a very active student activist since his early days. And since then, he joined the Naga People's Movement for Human Rights in 1978. And then, since then, he has never looked back working for the rights of the Nagas in terms of calling out the human rights violations in the Naga region. So thank you, Mr. Krome, for joining me in this conversation. And I was really looking forward to this conversation. I want to delve into the idea of your inspiration and motivation behind, since your early days as a student. What made you decide to become part of a movement that really speaks out for the rights of the Nagas, despite the fact that it was very challenging, it was very dangerous before the ceasefire days? So what inspired you in the beginning?
Well, the story of the Naga people suffering was everywhere, even when we were very young those days. And then in the 50s, 60s, we have seen with our own eyes how people have been suffering under the hands of the military. Everywhere you go, there's the Indian military, whether it is in village or towns. And the fact that even my own father, who was one of the first MLA from our region, he has been even taken away at gunpoint in front of me. And I've seen villagers being tortured. I've seen how people are killed, and then the stories are, everybody is just helpless. So I thought, at least to have a purpose in life, we need to fight for these kind of injustices. I think that is what kept me on for something all this way.
So, and when I look to your life story in a nutshell, you seem to come from a village. Like many of us do. So when you were in those days, like when you were in the village or in the Naga area those days, was there any pressure as an educated young man to pursue, a lucrative life as a government servant? Or when you made the decision, what was the response of your parents and society at large?
Well, actually, it just came about sort of automatically. From my younger days, I've been actively involved in social activities and outdoor activities and things like that. So actually, when I decided to take up this, there was no objection or pressure from my parents to opt for other ways of life. In fact, they just appreciated and was very supportive. So yeah, there has been offers, there has been opportunities for more lucrative lifestyle, but I decided against that. Yeah.
And we have like the incident in Matikra.
Yes.
Like when you look at human rights violations, in Operation Bluebird, which is in Oinam. So where were you when those incidents happened?
Well, when Matikra happened, that was in 1960. We were not actually born yet.
Okay.
But the story is told even today.
Right.
Yes. When Oinam happened, that was just the time I took over as the convener of MPMHR in 1986. And Oinam happened in 1987. So it was a very challenging period with not much support from the public and things like that. And we had to fight in the court, in Guwahati High Court. And so I was very much involved from those days onward. Yeah.
And when the NPMHR was founded, human rights violations, the misuse of power by our military armed forces, were at the climax those days. So what really happened, like in general, throughout the Naga areas? What was the scene of human rights violations as per your experience in the 1970s and 80s?
Yeah.
Like what was the scene?
Yeah, what happened in Okrul in those early days was right after MPMHR was formed, and then the activities started to expose the atrocities of the Indian Army. It was around that time that people like C. Paul and C. Daniel, who were one was a village pastor, one was a schoolmaster, they were taken away and disappeared. Then also, I think that also was the time when Miss Rose, who was a beauty queen of I forgot the name, Ngapram village or something. She was raped by two army officers, one captain and one major, in front of her parents and her village people. So there were a number of cases like that. So what happened in Okrug was, for the first time, a fact-finding team was sent to Okrug, along with some Indian human rights organization.
Okay. Okay. Then, as you moved on, like say, and once the NPMHR was founded, I wonder, like, who were the actual founders of that organization?
Well, it started with a handful of people.
Okay.
The first convener of NPMHR was Dr. P.S. Loren,
Okay.
who just expired
A few years ago.
few years ago, the principal of Techo College. And after him was Ahu Sakre, yeah, who also expired after him a few years ago.
Right.
And then there are people like Tajao Vieno, people like Lungam Luthui, who is now based outside the country. He was one of the key person behind the formation of NPMHR. We have people like Labu Sakre, who also was a retired professor from Kohima College, Mr. Kepuro, and a few other people, Sebastian Hongre, husband of Nandita Aksar.
Yes.
Yeah, a few of them, they were the one who started the movement. Yes.
So this movement was a response to, endless violations of human rights in the Naga area those days. And those people, the names that you mentioned, I think they were quite a highly educated people, even those days, as young students. They were all educated from one of the best universities. They were students in Jawaharlal in JNU. And then those are the time when they tried to tell the stories that what the Indian army is doing in Nagaland. But people will not believe that Indian soldiers will do that. Those were the days when Indian soldiers were quoted as the most disciplined. The Indian soldiers are known all over the world for the excellent behavior and discipline. That is the quote used by the Indian army, the government of India. But what they're doing in Nagaland is a completely different stories. But it so happened that during the emergency in India, when Indira Gandhi declared emergency in India from 1975 to 77, and the people, human rights activists and scholars and things like that, when they saw what Indira Gandhi government had been doing to the people, Indian people themselves, in Bihar, Lucknow, UP and things like that, forced sterilization, they started having second thought and started beginning to re-question about the Naga story. That's where our elders, whom I've mentioned a few of them, they began, their stories were being accepted. So some of the human rights organizations like People's Union for Democratic Rights, People's Union for Civil Liberties, these people helped in the formation of the Naga People's Movement for Human Rights in Delhi. And how different is, this is a properly democratic organization, right? It doesn't bear any arms like our other nationalist groups. So sometimes there probably was a chance of Indian government accusing this organization as the hand in gloves with the Naga nationalist groups.
Yes.
So was there any such accusation in the past?
Well, before the ceasefire started, it was around in 1996, there was a big seminar in Delhi. Right. Just one example, where nationalities in India converged in Delhi, and I was asked to come and tell the Naga story about human rights violation. And I compiled a list of people who were tortured, who were killed, just based on the newspaper reports, which came up to more than 100, almost 160, 170 people. And when during the seminar, when this paper was presented, the GOC, who was the general, was based in Jakama those days, this was the army headquarters, he issued a press statement accusing me of being hand in glove with the undergrounds. And so those stories are concocted and things like that. So, yeah, even as a small boy, I was also the Assam Rifles just here, Kohima, opposite my house. They broke my skull with the stone just because I happened to be playing near the game, hunting, shooting birds. Those days, playing marbles and shooting birds were the main occupation when we were free. So even my skull was broken, and then I was lucky that there was a doctor just in the block who's the father of Dr. Nikki, who was MLA from Kohima town. So he stitched my head with horse hair those days. and that is how I was saved. So even after that, after the ceasefire came, 2001, when the Nagas of Manipur, Eastern Naga, they were demanding the ceasefire should be extended to all Naga areas, and the women folks were having the human chain from Mao Gate to Tadobi for ceasefire extension to all Naga areas, and the army started disturbing them with guns in civil uniforms. I rushed up from Kohima to say that these people are only wanting peace. Why are you disturbing them? Then the army, without speaking, tried to shoot me with a pistol, but the woman went and caught him. And so in the process, when I was running, they even fired one whole AK-47 magazine at my running car. I somehow survived, but 2 people were injured who were on the line at Tadobi. So yeah, there were a lot of other cases also when they barged into my house, and then they would take me out from my room, surrounded me with guns, and then started demanding my identity. When I said I was the human rights convener, they asked me proof, things like that. And the CRPF next to my house is the SIB office. The guards are CRPF personnel. They were just watching helplessly. These are just a few instances.
Well, I think the atrocities that were committed were really, really very harsh and inhuman, when you look back those very dark days. So you personally witnessing all of these atrocities in the hands of our Indian armed forces, were you angry directed at them, or what was the thing that you would be very, very angry if you look back those? Is it the army that is doing, or is it the leadership of the India that is doing, or where would you direct your anger when you look back?
Naturally, the first anger was at the army for treating another human in such a manner. But also the anger also because that we were being forced under the occupation of the Indian military. The government of India is ruling us. There was no democratic sort of government. It was complete under the control of the army. So the anger first anger naturally was the Indian army. There were times when we were children, and then people start crying, as every family children cries, when the parents could not control them to stop crying. If the parents said, no, stop crying, otherwise black people are coming. Black people means Indians, Indian army. Then children start stopping to cry, they're sobbing and then controlling those were the extreme cases.
So now I think, and I'm guessing you are above 60 years old now.
Yes,
yeah, as a 60 years plus, old man, when you look back, why did all this happen? One thing that if you were to go back and rectify, so that these things do not repeat in human history or in the history of the Nagas, what was one thing that made all this responsible for?
No, I think it was government of India's intention was the act of the military was an act of genocide to annihilate us from the face of the earth. That was, if you look at the stories of the Nagas, then there's not a single Naga family who have not suffered death or injuries or been arrested, tortured. Every Naga family has a story to say. But it also happened because of the assertion of Indian leaders. Like, for instance, the first Prime Minister of India, Mr. Jawaharlal Nehru, when he came to Nagaland with the Burmese Prime Minister, UNU, to Kohima in 1953, and then since the Naga public was not allowed to meet him or make any representation, he felt so insulted, he went back to the Indian Parliament, and then he declared in the Indian Parliament that even if heaven falls and rivers runs with blood, he will not allow Naga to be independent. And that he said, I will crush the Naga people within 1 week. I will station 1 soldier for every tree in Nagaland and crush the Nagas. Those were the assertions. And those assertions influenced the Indian military even to do what they are doing more excessively. Then even in the later part of the 70s, say, when Morarji Desai became prime minister after Indira Gandhi,
Yes.
he also went to London to meet Piso. Maybe tried to convince him to surrender or give up the fight. But when Piso was clear about his stand, he again told Mr. Piso that he will, what was the word? But he said, exterminate. He will exterminate all Nagas and he will not have any compunction to do that. And after saying that, he came to Kohima, and in the Ras Bhavan, Kohima Ras Bhavan, he met a delegation of the Naga Students Federation. Even that time also, he made the same assertion what he told Piso. So when prime ministers was saying that kind of things to the extreme, that he will exterminate Nagas without any compunction, the army was encouraged to do more and more. So.
Definitely, that's a big motivation or kind of encouragement for the armed forces to commit more atrocities.
Yes.
I mean, when we look back, it's a very, very dark period for the Nagas, especially. You know, when Nagas used to fight without any ceasefire those days. And when you mentioned about the figure of a giant person like Jawaharlal Nehru, when you read Indian history, he was all for non-violent democratic actions, fight against the British government. And he was successful somehow in doing that. As soon as the British left, he resorted to violence to crush some of the people, especially the Nagas in the northeastern states. That's such a paradox of a figure like him. From the Indian angle, he is such an admirable person for having propagated such ideas and principles. But the way he treated the Nagas has never been favorable or has never been good. So now since those days, the struggle of those days and up until today, when you really look at that, you can see that situation has really, really changed. What do you attribute the change of this situation? Either the ceasefire, or is it because India and Nagas have come to a more clear understanding that crushing the Nagas or crushing people, let's say the separatists, is not possible anymore. We need to start talking. So what do you attribute this peaceful environment nowadays to?
Yeah, definitely, say, MP Machar was formed in 1978. I'm not saying that MP Machar have done all this, whatever, not taking the credit in any way. But before that, there were no organizations that could speak out. And for complete 25 years, from 1953 to 1978, there was a blackout. Like you talk about the blackout in Kashmir recently. Right. There was complete blackout. There was no newspaper to report what is happening here. Indian journalists, foreign journalists, nobody was allowed to come. About them, in 1960, somehow one Gavin from London managed to come to Mallory. I mean, so besides that, there was no newspaper reporters. No people were allowed to come to Nagaland, and there was one paper called Citizen's Voice in the 70s, which reported about Naga villages being burned. And then the newspaper was conveniently banned.
And do you think Nagas will have evidence for the fact that Indian army is also complicit to the Naga factional clash? I mean, the invisible hands that incite violence among the Nagas. Do you think Nagas can have evidence for that, or it was just allegations?
I think to search for evidence is not far. But we don't want to dig out all these ugly stories, because there will be further misunderstanding among the Nagas. So nobody is clean in a way. But I think some stories are best not repeated or told. That's why I think we will not like to go so much deep into such ugly side of the stories.
But chances are there of inciting into more violence if we don't stop this, let's say, verbal feud between the factional groups. So, I mean, what do you think will be best for the different Naga national political groups at this juncture? In order not to repeat those ugly and very difficult past for the Nagas.
Yeah, I mean, for that matter, every Naga is concerned, and so as you are aware, there has been reconciliation by Forum for Naga Reconciliation, and killing have stopped, but the verbal fight continue. The fact is, these are maybe at the instance of a third force, but the fact is we ourselves, the Naga people ourselves, we have not been able to control ourselves. The kind of anger that we have developed among each other, and especially on tribal lines. I think these are some of the factors which needs to be addressed, but a very difficult issue to be addressed.
And if we understand correctly, then NBMHR was very, very relevant before the Naga ceasefire days. Let's say before the 1997 or maybe before that. However, now the ceasefire has been already enforced and it's going on for every group literally now. Now there is no armed struggle between any other group, between the other group and the Indian armies. Now what I want to understand is, now what do we have now? Like as someone who has worked entirely for most of your life for Naga people, for movement for human rights, how relevant is NBMHR, and has the activity and responsibility of NBMHR ended with the absence of the violence now?
See, for human rights movement, whether I'm there or anybody else is there, it doesn't stop with a person. Human rights issues will have to be addressed even after Naga gets independence. So these are issues that we try to educate even to the armed groups on occasions. But the fact is, in order to not this ugly history repeat to our children, the future generation, the only possible way is to see that these political conflicts are resolved. So when ceasefire came, NBMHR made it a point that we follow the ceasefire process, the peace process, and we try to strengthen the peace process in every way we can do, and we know how.
So you mentioned about, once the deal, even after Naga gets some political solution, NBMHR and the responsibility of an organization like this will continue, because human rights violation happen even in a fully democratic country, which makes a lot of sense. However, when you look at the Naga society or as such, what kind of political solutions are we looking at as someone who has fully immersed in the Naga issue in a very democratic form? What kind of issue do you think will resolve this Naga political issue? What kind of solution will resolve it?
See, with our ceasefire and political negotiations now going on for 26 years, over 26 years, going 27 years. This period of ceasefire has taught us that these negotiations are making progresses at different stages of time, but it's, in a way, to my understanding, it's not leading us anywhere. Now, for something to happen, for something good political solution to happen, it all will depend on the Naga people themselves. As long as we think that India can give us the kind of solution, that's an illusion. India can never give us the solution that we want. The present negotiation that is going on, whether it is the framework agreement or agreed position or whatever, these are promises made to be broken. And India will not be sincere in implementing. So Naga people ourselves, we need to understand and learn to live what should be our history. If to live our history, we have to live independently, and not to be dependent on others. But at the moment, everybody seems to be looking at the negotiation for a solution. Okay, that is logical indeed, that is rational indeed. But with the attitude that one can see, I think India will just keep on making promises and then just drag on. And this ceasefire has been one of the biggest weapons India have been able to destroy the Nagas as a people, more than the bullets and guns. So if we are able to come together, understand our future together, learn from our past history, then I think there is hope. We can always assert ourselves. There are many countries who are much less developed than us, or smaller than us, but have gained their independence, even in this period of ceasefire that Nagas have been going through. Some of them are seated in Timor-Leste, which was called East Timor those days. In 2002, they got independence. Aceh Republic in Indonesia, they are so much more backward than Nagas. Then we have stories like the Kosovo. They are so smaller than Nagas, people, even population-wise, but they're all independent because they are able to come together and assert for themselves. Nagas were much better, more progressive in many ways. For instance, the Bougainvilleans, who also, like Nagas, they entered the ceasefire agreement in 2005. And they were given a period of 10 to 15 years to decide whether they really want to be independent or to stay with Papua New Guinea. So by 2015-16, they decided that they want to be independent. So with a lot of difficulties, there are a small group of people, if you look whatever in the history, small group of people who have been ourselves there, who have visited their place, who have studied their peace processes. But this small group of people who are very uneducated in a way, very backward in a way, but they came to a conclusion that if Bougainvilleans, they too had started fighting among themselves like Nagas, but they say that if we kill each other and finish each other, when Bougainville become independent, who will live in Bougainville? So they decided that in order to save Bougainville, let us stop fighting. And then that's how they become independent now, though in a very difficult situation. So Nagas will need to learn. And I'm hopeful in many ways that we can get what we aspire for from a different angle. Not necessarily through the negotiation that is going on. We think that we're too small. But United Nations is completely aware of what is going on in Nagaland. And as you have mentioned earlier in the intro, I also have been personally going there on several occasions. There were instances when I was asked to be a speaker, panelist in the UN meetings. So those were opportunities I was able to use. Now, when you look at even the spirit in which the ceasefire came and when Narasimha Rao went to meet our leaders in Paris to sign the ceasefire, the United States hosted the meeting, the formal meeting, announcing the ceasefire. Ceasefire came in 97, but the process started in 95. So somewhere in later part of 95 and 96, I sat and along with the Indian representative, Prime Ministers, two of them, they were hosted in New York to sign the deal.
I see.
Now, when that happened, United States was fully aware that they are traveling without proper documents because we don't want to carry Indian passport. So the Department of State, in a small letterhead, wrote a letter to whom it may concern, saying that these two gentlemen, Isaac Chisisu and T.H. Moiva, are freedom fighters for their people. So they want to negotiate peace with the government of India. So they should be allowed free entry in the United States. I've seen that letter with my own eyes. So, I mean, that kind of understanding was even there, even during those days. Now, after the ceasefire came, so many countries in Asia and Europe hosted the negotiations between the Nagas and the Indian.
Yes.
So, without support and without understanding our situation, why should they host? So, if Nagas can assert for ourselves and be clear about what we want and stand for ourselves, there are many countries who are willing to understand and support us. Now, I want to tell you one example. Now, for instance, in 2007, I've been invited as one of the international leadership visitors to the US program. So during that was in 2007, and during those meetings, even this Kosovo was still under Serbia.
Okay.
So one of the representatives from Kosovo and another representative from Serbia and Montenegro, they were also there. And in that meeting, the United States representative told the Kosovo representative, because he refused to wear the badge of Serbia,
Okay.
saying that please don't make a fuss about this, because you're going to be independent next year on March 18, he said, even the date.
I see.
So the representative was so happy. Then, but later on, he was given the badge of Kosovo. I was there and I got so jealous. I said, "What have you done to this to be given this independence? How many years have you fought?" So they said they fought for 15 years. So I said, "We fought more than 50 years, and what about us?" So the Kosovo guy was telling me, the ears of the diplomats hears only the sound of gunfires and bombs. Maybe trying to say that we have not fought enough. But at the end of the day, after 21 days of these programs being over, the same person who said that Kosovo will be declared independence in March, because our meeting was also in March 8 to 29th of 31st of March. So say that Kosovo, you're going to be independent next year, and from now on, we're going to be thinking of Nagaland. That was the exact word he said. And in the same year, 2007, in London, again, the House of Lords, they hosted a meeting of parliamentarians for national self-determination, where representatives from Kosovo, from Punjab, from Tajikistan, Nagaland, and all the struggling people, many were also invited. So our Nagas MPMHR Secretary General was Mr. Venu at that time. I was in the Naga Hall those days. He was also there. Some of our leaders from the NSCN were also there. So even in that meeting, the House of Lords again said that Kosovo will be independent very soon. And this was in December. And they got independent in March. And they also said that next, from now, we'll be thinking of Nagaland. Now, what I'm trying to say is when Kosovo was declared independent, Russia was the first to go against it. Even the United Nations, they objected. Then other countries, they started objecting. But US and UK, they stood their ground. They supported that Kosovo has to be independent. So in the first initial years, they had a lot of difficulties, but Kosovo is not independent. Now, if we Nagas also have been able to stand by ourselves, among ourselves, and if we're not been killing among ourselves, I think our position was a much stronger case. And when the United States and the UK stood their ground, other countries, no matter how strongly they objected, it happened. So when United States representative and UK themselves was telling us those things, in the presence of our representative, in our presence, Nagas, if we have not been fighting among ourselves, I think our story could have been a completely different story now. But I so feel that if Nagas can answer positively without fighting, and then we don't need violence to tell India also. And if countries like that can also keep their word, I think there's a very bright scope for us to be what we want to be.
Oh, that's a very beautiful story. And I can imagine how jealous you must be like of other countries when you look back home. Because here we are killing each other, and Nagas are like pointing one finger to other on the tribal line mostly. So Kosovo or East Timor or whichever country that you had mentioned, maybe their case can be totally different in the sense that they may not be so heterogeneous in terms of tribe and in terms of group like we the Nagas are. So I think the tribal line, when Nagas used to have the so-called common enemy, the Indian Armed Forces or the India as a country, Nagas used to be so divided because the enemy, let's say the alleged enemy, was very, very strong. However, now that India has no longer been the so-called enemy for the Nagas, in terms of waging war, waging armed conflicts, Nagas have become each other's enemy in the real sense, killing each other. So sometimes do you really imagine, do you really hope and expect that Nagas can also be united under one umbrella? Because my doubt and my suspicion is that people have become very, very individualistic nowadays. And the Naga patriotism is hardly seen anywhere nowadays. So what is your hope? Do you think this unity and oneness can happen to make one voice very clear to the world?
I think especially the present generation, let's say today's Nagas, we are also crossing that stage. Now I'm so 60 plus. Our stage and our elder stages. These two batch of people who have been very destructive. The elder batches, they have sacrificed so much. But there are still people in the generation ahead of us who are still very destructive. And they continue to poison the minds of the Naga public. But I think the younger generation, the present Nagas and the younger ones, they're not fools. They're much wiser than us, our batches and our elder batches. And they know how much the division among the Nagas have been causing all these difficulties. So I think given the opportunity, I think the younger generation will not repeat what we have done. What we need to do, the present generation, the elders, is to give space to the younger people to also live their expectation. Now we're trying to control everybody, our batches. We are poisoning the minds of the public. And even in terms of tribal enmity, say between the south and the north, east or west Nagas, it is the present generation, the elder generation, that continues to poison the minds of the Nagas. Otherwise, I think the younger generation, they're at peace with each other, and they know how their parents are struggling and fighting among themselves. So the hope is the present generation who are not been able to assert themselves. And people who have been destructive, we know very much, need to understand that our days are gone. Our days are gone. And we must not continue to destroy the future of the younger generation. So I'm quite hopeful that the present generation have all the knowledge of the world in their fingertips. They know what is good, they know what is bad. So I'm sure they will not repeat what the elder generations have done. So we just need to give them space, and the elder generation who have been just trying out for their personal vengeance on any issues must stop this trend of creating poisoning the minds of the younger people.
And as a people now, when we see the Naga nationalist groups, the armed groups, we see that the negotiation has been on for quite a long time, as you had correctly mentioned. And for the last 27 years, the negotiation has still not ended, still ongoing. At least, thankfully, there is no violence. Thank God for that. However, when you look at the other picture of a Naga political issue, no solutions, no viable solutions seems to have arrived from both sides. One group is ready to, go ahead with whatever they have signed, and one group is still demanding for two things, which is everybody knows, the constitution and the flag. How important it is to, remain steadfast on the constitution and the flag? Do you think we can pass over that and get some solution, or do you think we should stick to that as a people?
I think what the present leadership must understand is we need to go beyond the present negotiations. Flag and constitutions are not to be an issue actually. When there is opportunity for us to self-determine our own future, to determine for ourselves, whether we use flag or constitution is our wish. We don't need anybody's permission. But they have made that an issue, and that has become the roadblock. But I think we need to go beyond this present negotiation. We need to go beyond this negotiation. Naga people must be able to come together to assert, and here the Naga public must play their positive role. But as I've been saying in some areas, the Naga public has become more destructive than the national workers, which is a very sad thing to happen. Yeah.
Now, as someone who has fervently worked on this, Naga political issue in a very democratic way, you have been traveling, to foreign countries to represent the cause of the Nagas, to advocate for the struggles and political cause of the Nagas in many, many ways. And lately, in 2019, you were banned, you were deported from Kolkata airport. So what happened that day? Can you narrate that to all of us? What actually happened that day?
No, after analyzing and after doing a little investigation myself, I've come to understand that it was not the government of India who stopped me. There was no official order, but it was Mr. Ravi, who was then the governor negotiator. It was his personal initiative.
Okay.
So I don't have grudges, but Ravi has played so much divisive policies. He has destroyed the negotiation in many ways. Well, we can call him the victor because they will do what is worse for us. And what Nagas need to understand is India will do just the opposite of what we want. But Nagas, we share the deepest secret with the Indian leadership, which we don't even share among Nagas. We trust the Indian leadership so much that every secret is exposed to our, say, maybe not enemies, but they are our political opponent. So that is one of the difficulties that Nagas need to overcome.
So am I assuming it correctly that when Ravi was the governor of Nagaland, he was monitoring your movements?
Of course, yes.
So he as a governor cannot monitor himself. So am I correct to say that there are informants?
Of course.
That Mr. Krome is going to Kolkata and is planning to fly out from there to go and represent the Nagas. So, I mean, he's a chairman of intelligence committee as well.
Yeah.
No wonder he has all this information. However, as someone who would go to foreign countries, but you are going as a very, very democratic person, right? You have not resorted to any violence. You have not spoken about like Indians should be killed. It's nothing, but it's our democratic rights to assert what you believe in and what I believe in. And I feel that no one should stop anyone willing to travel like that. So in the earlier days, everything was blamed on the government of India for stopping you to go to foreign country. Now that you have revealed something about, very surprisingly, it seems to be, or most probably it was done by Ravi through your research. Now, you have termed Ravi as some sort of a very divisive person who has really destroyed the oneness of the Nagas by using a lot of people. However, there are a good number of people, section of people who really loved Ravi, who really praised Ravi for focusing on on cleaning up the mess that is being done or the footprint of the Naga nationalist movement that has been already stamped on the Naga society. He was trying to clean all this up. So what do you think on that? Because Nagas are also divided for sure when it comes to that.
Yes. Yeah, our Naga people are again our own enemies in every sense of the term, because whether it is in my case or somebody to earn their bread for the family, but at what cost?
True. At what cost?
So that is what they're doing. So I really don't want to give so much of that importance to Ravi's.
Him and the Naga people as a whole. Now, like in conglomeration of people from almost all the Naga political groups, all the factions coming together and saying their minds out, saying their opinions out for the people, for the Naga people, for early political settlement. People came and expressed a lot of positive points out there, positive views that everyone is for the best, interest of the Nagas. What did you take away from such meetings? And it's a very good step. However, what was your observation, and how reliable are their words?
Well, to be honest, those kind of gatherings sometimes are platforms to demonstrate the ability of one person or one leader, their ability to make good speeches, to make their points, saying that they want what is the best for the people. But at the end of the day, there is no outcome besides the words that have been expressed. But we've been experiencing this kind of gathering for many years now, yes. Ever since, I don't know, even before the reconciliation started. But the fact that people are able to come together and express their feeling face to face is a very positive thing that should continue. But they should say things meaning from their heart. But we say one thing and do the other. That is the saddest part of such gatherings.
Now, when we have discussed and we have touched a lot of points about this, starting from the NBMHR, those days, and until today, the Naga political negotiations, and how Nagas are being protected. You have shared a lot about, in abroad, in foreign countries. So, broadly, we have touched almost everything about the Naga political issue in a nutshell. However, when you look back and see the people living in the southern Naga areas, the northern, eastern, western, even in Myanmar. So seeing the sentiments of the people, what do you see and what is your message for people as someone who has given the prime of your life for the Naga political cause?
See, when we talk about our Naga issue, we seem to talk about the interests or the problems of Nagas living in this present state of Nagaland. Every issue seems to be a reflection of what Nagas of people living in the present state of Nagaland wants. And most of the time, we forget the sufferings of Nagas in South, in Assam, in Arunachal. If you look at the situation of Nagas in Burma, in Western Burma, which is Eastern Nagaland, it's so pathetic. So when we try to talk about Nagas, we have to be inclusive of all these people. But we have the Nagas of Nagaland are the most privileged people among the Nagas. Yes, we have suffered to a very large extent, in the 50s, 60s, 70s, whatever, the sufferings. But after that, especially after the 80s, the suffering has shifted to southern Naga areas, where the army operations like ONM is just one of them. But army operations have gone everywhere. It may not be like the repetition of the past, but the psychological warfare, the mental trauma, everything. So Nagas, we have to understand that our selfish interest, the privileged people, need to understand that there are people who have suffered much more than us. And if Nagas are looking for a solution, we should look at those people, those who are suffering. Now, for instance, the present policy of the government of India to fence the Naga territory. How can this be allowed? We have not said anything because practically it will be impossible. And if government of India does that, they're just inviting more trouble. Maybe Nagas will suffer again, but Nagas will not just sleep and let it happen. If you look at the Nagas' death side, how much they are suffering. For even small medication, they depend on Nagas of this side of the border.
True. I personally have been to Mon area, the border area, and I see that a lot of Nagas from Myanmar side came to fetch rice and daily food, spices, salt, and daily usage from Mon area, which is like the Indian part of it. So having totally cut off those people can create a lot of problems for those people living beyond the border. That's I can already imagine. I can observe, as I've been also personally there. So what is as a person who has now grown so much into the Naga political issue, as an activist for propagation of Naga rights, in terms of human rights violations, in terms of Naga political issue, what do you look forward to in life? Having done so much and having advocated so much for the Nagas cause, what is your wish and what do you look forward to in life?
No,
personally,
we don't know to what extent we will continue to do the work. Our abilities were so aging.
Right.
But God has given us this life for a purpose. For however long and active we can be, we'll pursue this dream of the common Nagas, not our personal dream.
So do you have that, a soft corner of expectation in you that maybe in your lifetime, Nagas may be able to get some sort of a political solution which is so-called honorable and acceptable to the people?
In this present context, I think the word solution also is irrelevant to my understanding. But some kind of an interim agreement can come, maybe for a period of 10 years, 20 years. It's like a quick fix. Say first aid solution. Settlement. But the word solution comes only when there's no more problem. So I think for that kind of solution, it may not happen soon, but we should pave a way for solution for the younger generation to enjoy. But by compromising the future of the Nagas and by compromising what the movement started for, I think we're going to destroy our history and our future. And that is the biggest thing which we need to defeat. And the Naga generation of today, the leadership of today, is doing exactly that, betraying the cause of the Nagas for which they have started, and then borrowing the future of our children. If there are questions of the present leadership, whether it is overground, underground, state politicians, or national workers, leaders should understand this. But they seem to be too comfortable in their comfort zones. This needs to be checked and analyzed properly.
So thank you so much for your insights, and I hope a small conversation like this can speak to a lot of people and make them think, not necessarily accept to what we discuss here.
Of course.
However, it injects something in their brain and make them think and make the best decisions for themselves. I think it's very important to come out and speak and have this conversation openly like this, because when you look at the Naga society as such, we're not used to speaking things openly. However, we would say or do anything that can hurt people, but we're not able to negotiate, we're not able to reason things out on a public platform like this. But I really appreciate you for the fact that you are able to, come here and say your minds and wish the best for the Nagas, and I really appreciate for your time. And I think one more time we can have a conversation like this in the near future.
Thank you so much. It was also an opportunity for you on your part to give me this platform through which I feel that my feelings can be shared to a larger audience, which is not possible in one platform or in one meeting. I just hope people who have been listening to our conversation will not take our words out of context, but understand in its true sense of the meaning of what we're trying to convey.
Exactly.
Yeah, so thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Krome.